with his version of Storm. I want to say it was in Baltimore or Jersey, in that area
Northeast
somewhere.
area.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely both of these players, very accomplished. Dan Jordan, I want to say, has actually won 4 Star City Opens.
I believe 4 is the correct number, yes.
Several of those were standard a couple years back with Callblade, Delver.
Yeah, when he was playing a lot more frequently.
Yeah, various degenerate decks.
Dan going to lay out that hand there. You're going to see 2 copies of Force of Will, a Stoneforge Mystic. Looks like 2 Stoneforges, 2 Force of Wills, a True Name Nemesis, and then a Misty Rainforest.
Force of Will, the key card here against Bryant's deck, which is geared to murder you as quickly as possible.
There's a Ponder, so not a discard spell yet here from Cook. Ponder will resolve, so we'll take a look at the top 3 cards. There's Lotus Petal among them, but it's going to be a very quick shuffle here for Cook. He did not like what he saw. Yeah, Dan's hand, he's got some nice defense, but Force of Will isn't, the ultimate defense against a Storm deck when they have therapies and duresses.
True. Well, yeah, no individual card is the ultimate defense against these Legacy Storm decks.
That's true.
Yeah, again, because they are so dense with their discard. But Dan's hand's actually pretty good here. Of course, he does have the option to force once. If he draws another blue card, he can force twice. And Stoneforge Mystic is relevant here.
Yep.
As strange as that sounds, because it feels kind of anemic and slow, but turn 2 Stoneforge into turn 3 Batterskull is a significant clock here. This is not like the modern Storm decks don't really care about the actual Storm count. If they can Grape Shot you for 20, they can Grape Shot you for 100.
Yeah.
But Legacy Storm doesn't really work that way. Every 4, when you gain 4, that's 2 more spells that need to be cast.
It's a Brainstorm, as we'll draw 3 and put 2 back here for Cook. Yeah, it's also important, too, with the Stoneforge Mystic, just to actually get a clock going. That's what Batterskull provides. A lot of the time, if Jordan were playing Rug Delver, for example, it'd be important to have a Delver on turn 1, or at least a Tarmogoyf on turn 2, and actually get the ball rolling. Stoneforge Mystic allows you to do that via Batterskull.
Yeah, you cannot beat these style decks by sitting still. Yeah. That's for sure.
The Brainstorm does resolve. 2 cards do go back, and now Misty Rainforest will be sacrificed. Cook will go grab a Volcanic Island.
I'll be interested to see if he is going to actually attempt a combo turn here, or just keep cantripping.
This feels like another cantrip
coming.
The only reason I feel that way is because he didn't get an Underground Sea. But it doesn't mean he can't go from 0 to 60. And he is just going to sacrifice that to play around Stifle. Oddly enough, as you take a look at Dan's deck list, he does not have those. He does have Gataxian Probes, and Probe is more often seen in that slot nowadays. So Jordan does just pass the turn back over to Cook. Cook's going to play an end-of-turn Brainstorm here.
So looking to set things up. Turn 3, usually kind of the flashpoint for these Burning Wish Storm decks.
Yeah, they can go. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me either if we maybe just see Cook just cast Burning Wish on this turn, maybe a little further setup, because again, he's not underneath a lot of pressure. I suppose the pressure here is that every card that Dan draws is a little bit more scary.
Yeah. That's always been my philosophy when playing these kind of degenerate decks. It's just, if you can avoid giving them a draw step, do so.
Yeah. Bryant has tapped the Underground Seed. He's going to cast a Dark Ritual, and we'll see if Dan has any interest in countering this or not. As he does sit up in his chair a little bit here. A lot of the time, what you want to do is you want to stop the initial ritual, and this is the one that can generate the most.
Yeah, it's a little counterintuitive, but once this ritual resolves, there will be black mana to spare for any kind of duressing and therapying. So if you can force the ritual and bottleneck Bryant on black mana for a turn, then that is actually, again, just a turn.
Yep.
That's the real problem here.
This is always what I've kind of always found compelling about the Storm deck too, is they cast something as innocent as Dark Ritual, and you start to panic a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll let that resolve. What's going to come after it? And here's a duress. So now Bryant's going to attempt to get a look here, and Dan's going to cast a Forceful, removing True Name Nemesis. Those are cards that Bryant did already know about from the Gataxian Probe.
Yep. Bryant knows that there's 1 Forceful remaining there. When he last checked, there was not a blue card to go with it.
Correct.
And I believe there's a Delver up there front, right? No, that is the Batterskull.
Yep.
There's still not a blue card to go with it.
I don't think that there is one. Now, he's going to cast a Burning Wish here. Now, again, Dark Ritual resolve. Use one of the 3 black mana to cast Duress. You use a red mana from Volcanic, and then one of the black mana that was floating. You cast a Burning Wish. Now, there's a black mana still floating, and Bryant could go get a discard spell because his Thoughtseize in his sideboard to go wish for.
Yeah, to take a look at the options here. Past in Flames, Tendrils of Agony, Empty the Warrens as kind of the major win conditions, and a Grape Shot, which is kind of a hybrid win condition and answer. an Infernal Tutor, a Thoughtseize, and a Void Snare. So 7 cards that you can fetch up here. The Thoughtseize would make some sense, but it's possible that Bryant actually just needs this Burning Wish to be business.
Let's see what the Storm Master is going to go get here. Again, Bryant having a huge hand in developing the Epic Storm in Legacy. Knows a lot about this deck, plays it just about every Legacy tournament. You can see his deck is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
It's definitely a labor of love.
Yep, this is one of the most tweaked out Legacy lists, or Legacy decks that we regularly see.
Oh, yeah. Though I am a little surprised to see him kind of second-guessing himself a little bit in this situation. He's given this a lot more thought than I thought maybe I expected him to.
Well, just because you've played the deck a million times doesn't mean you're always on autopilot.
Yeah,
you know? Honestly, you have the luxury of tanking on turns like these because you don't have to tank on every turn, including turn 0 when you're keeping, you know?
He is going to finally settle on a Thoughtseize here, and he does have a black mana floating, so wouldn't be surprised if we just end up seeing him cast that right now, as he does add it to his hand. There's no guarantee he has to cast it now, though. He could wait.
True. And we see Lotus Petal and Lion's Eye Diamond, so with the 1 mana in the pool, the 2 untapped sources there, and then the 3 mana in play, Bryant Cook has access to 6 mana total. So mana not really the issue here.
This is an interesting turn to me.
Yeah. The question is if you cast this Thoughtseize, what gas do you have left? Do you have the Infernal Tutor? Do you have another Burning Wish?
Well, what I actually kind of find interesting about this turn is Bryant has this Thoughtseize, and I imagine he's going to cast the Thoughtseize. And for Dan, Dan wants to maybe keep up appearances that like I have a Spell Pierce or something like that. And Bryant might just say, well, I'm actually trying to just Thoughtseize your Batter Skull to give myself a whole lot more time.
Yeah.
That might actually be the big plan all along. Now, it looks like we're countering this Lotus Petal, which I think is very interesting. And a very aggressive use of Force of Will here from Jordan.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, Dan knows that there's a Thoughtseize looming, so he's not going to keep that Force of Will for very long. He's either going to force the Thoughtseize or force something else, or just not force at all. So this gives him the window to simply respond to Thoughtseize by putting the Batter Skull into play and hope that's good enough.
This is a Chrome Mox. He's going to imprint.
Okay.
He's going to remove. I think he may have set him up here. He's going to cast Burning Wish with this on the stack. That's spell number 9.
And the Chrome Mox plus the 3 from the LED, that's 4 mana.
Yeah, he's going to go get a Tendrils and finish him off right there, and that is going to do it. And so Jordan may have helped him out a little bit with those Force of Wills, and Bryant Cook is going to win game number 1 over Dan Jordan. 2 Force of Wills and 2 blue cards? That's not good enough.
No big deal. Now, to be fair, that was a Tendrils for 20. It didn't have to be a Tendrils for 20. It actually could have been a Tendrils for just 16 there. So Dan helped him out, but it didn't make the difference. It wasn't some kind of master like I need to get him to force a Lotus Petal to win the game situation. But it feels better if we say that's what it was.
I mean,
so let's just
solid play nonetheless there from Cook.
Definitely.
So we will take a look at the sideboards here. Dan Jordan's is where we will begin. He's got 4 copies of Meddling Mage, 2 Flusterstorm, a Sword of Feast and Famine, a Red Elemental Blast, a Pyroblast, a Swords to Plowshares, 2 Grim Lavamancer, 2 Rest in Peace, and a copy of Wear and Tear. Meddling Mages are certainly going to come into this matchup as naming Burning Wish against Bryant's deck is very, very good.
Yes.
Needs Burning Wish to actually be able to go off and kill someone. He does have a main deck copy of Empty the Warrens, but he can't actually go off without casting Burning Wish to go get Tendrils. So 2 copies of Flusterstorm, pretty good. Sword and Feast and Famine, put the pressure on as far as discard, leaving your mana open for counter magic is concerned. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Rest in Peace come in. I think she has 2 copies in his sideboard. It's not great against this deck because they don't need their graveyard as much. There's no Past in Flames in the main deck. It's just in the sideboard to wish for. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Dan bring it in.
Well, yeah, the Past in Flames is in the sideboard, and there's not one in the main deck, but that doesn't necessarily make it less of a graveyard-based Storm deck than normal. I feel like this version of Storm actually uses Past in Flames more so than the traditional 3-color ad nauseum decks. Having said that, those decks have Cabal Rituals, so that they actually use the graveyard to that extent as well.
Sure.
So it's kind of a give and take. Yeah, I agree that Rest in Peace is good. There are probably a lot of relatively useless spells in there too, so definitely a lot of wiggle room. On Bryant's side, I mentioned there are the 7 wish targets. I actually, in the face of 4 Meddling Mage, I would expect Bryant to actually bring some of those into the main deck as insurance. The actual sideboard cards he has access to are 2 Abrupt Decay, 2 Xantid Swarm, 2 Pithing Needle, and 2 Chain of Vapor. Now, of those, I am pretty excited about Xantid Swarm, and I am kind of apathetic about the rest of them, although I could see him feeling the need to bring in Abrupt Decay, anticipating Meddling Mage.
Okay. And I imagine Brian's very familiar with the blue and red Delver deck list, so as a result, I think he'll be prepared to play against Meddling Mage. I mean, all of them have them.
Yeah, definitely.
It's uniform at this point. The numbers may be a little bit different. Dan has 4, some people only have 3.
True.
But you'd expect to see them, and I wouldn't be surprised to see those Abrupt Decays coming in this matchup. I do wonder if he's going to bring in Xantid Swarm here.
I mean, Dan interacts on the stack actually quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we saw Force of Wills. Dan also has Dazes, he has Spell Pierces.
Fluster Storms in his sideboard.
Fluster Storms, post-board, maybe even Blasts. So there are a lot of counter spells. I think Xantid Swarm is a pretty safe bet. Now, it's actually a little worse against Blue-White Red than it could be against other blue decks because Dan has more burn than those. I guess just the 4 Lightning Bolt. You wouldn't keep things like Lava Mance or anything like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, Lava Mancer probably comes out, but I don't think there's a guarantee that Lightning Bolt comes out. It's kind of an easy card to sideboard out, but it can also kind of mess with their life total when they're trying to go off with ad nauseum.
Yeah, I think that decks with Lightning Bolt keep them in these situations, unless they just have a kind of a huge pile of really powerful sideboard options, which I'm not convinced that Dan does, really.
Cook with a very quick mulligan, not like what he saw. Jordan's going to be on the play here, so he's already kept his hand. We'll see what he can find at this go-around. His start wasn't bad, and his hand wasn't bad, but Cook was able to push through and overcome it. So,
yeah, these decks, they mulligan a lot more than the average Magic deck, I would say. Bryant only has 13 land. He does have some, he has far more than 13 mana sources.
yes.
Once you start factoring in Chrome Moxes, especially once you start factoring in things like Lotus Petals and Rites of Flame, then this deck is about half mana sources, honestly. But you do need to make your land drops in order to actually do things, particularly against Daze Wasteland decks.
See if Cook likes his 6 now. Takes a long look at those.
I love the stare down from Dan.
It's a Delver of Secrets. It's easily Dan's best start in the matchup.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference when you get your clock into play immediately.
Gataxian Probe is going to get cast here, and Dan actually, it feels like, thought about dazing that for just a moment. And, I actually kind of find it interesting on if you're supposed to daze something like this when your opponent does mulligan. And also when you want to kind of conceal information. Now, you see Dan's hand here. There's a Daze, there's a Force of Will, there's a Spell Pierce, along with a Stoneforge Mystic and a Meddling Mage. So Dan's hand is great. He does need another land for it to be perfect, one would say. But I think it's an interesting discussion on if you're supposed to potentially daze there.
Yeah, and I think the decider there is actually the lack of a second land.
Okay.
So, I guess the lack of the land drop doesn't matter there so much. It's just the presence of relevant 2-drops. If Dan picks up his Volcanic Island, then he's 2 turns away from casting Stoneforge or Meddling Mage.
There's a Wasteland, certainly timely, right off the top of the deck, which Cook does know. Gonna play an Underground, see before passing the turn back. There is another copy of Force Will, and Jordan does have plenty of blue cards in his hand right now as well, so that's a nice reveal, even though it's not a land. That'll give Jordan a little more protection.
My favorite moment as a Delver of Secrets player is when you flip over a really relevant card. So it's just like the bad news trigger.
Okay.
It's just like, guess what? I drew this, also 3 you.
Yeah, this you can't win.
Yeah.
Let's see if Jordan found a land. Looks like he found a land too. Yeah, so his draws have been fantastic over the first couple of turns this game. Wasteland to take care of the Gemstone Mine. Force of Will to turn over the Delver, give himself more protection, and now Scalding Tarn to give him the white mana that he needs to cast the Meddling Mage if he wants to go that route.
This has been a relatively, I don't want to say flooded, but a land-heavy draw relative to the rest of Bryant's deck for Bryant.
Jordan going to draw a card here. Thought about sacrificing that Scalding Tarn to maybe go get a Tundra, but opted against it. Looks like he's just going to leave the shields up the entire time. The basic thought process I think here from Dan is I don't need anything else on the board.
Yeah, sure. Like on the next turn, playing Meddling Mage increases your clock, so that's relevant. But there's no reason not to just sit on your Spell Pierces here.
Yeah, he can just sit on all his permission, use Meddling Mage as a blue card to remove the Force of Will. Now, if he were to cast Meddling Mage on this particular turn, it's just a 1-turn clock. The 3+2.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like he's going to do that. He wants to leave up the ability to cast both the Force of Wills the Spell Pierce and the Red Elemental Blast. It's kind of hard to pass up on that.
It's a lot of interaction to get through, that's for sure.
He's going to Red Blast that Brainstorm right away. None of the cards when Storm is trying to go off are blue, but the kind of the setup cards are. And Brainstorm is a huge factor in this matchup as far as setting up to be able to try to slog through this counter magic. So I actually like Red Blasting that Brainstorm a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, as you mentioned, there's not a better target in the deck than a Brainstorm. Or in most decks, for that matter.
That's true. This is an attack for 3. Cook's going to go down to 2. Jordan's able to present lethal on the next turn. Now, he did draw a land here, so I want to kind of see.
Yeah, well, we can still leave up Spell Pierce. And cast Meddling Mage. And so between Meddling Mage, Spell Pierce, and 2 Force of Wills.
You would imagine.
Yeah, that is one of the tallest orders I have yet heard.
Yeah, you would imagine that he would be able to win the game with all of that.
Yeah, if Bryant Cook goes off here through Meddling Mage, Spell Pierce, and double Force of Will, I am going to march over there and hand him a trophy right now.
Yep, no reason to keep playing.
Tournament's over, guys. We can all go home.
There is the Meddling Mage. We will get confirmation on what that is naming as soon as it does resolve, as Cook does not have counter magic to stop that, I believe. He will sacrifice his fetch land and go down to 1 to search out a copy of Tropical Island. Of course, Tropical Island is in there, so he can cast Abrupt Decay and Xantid Swarm.
Disclaimer, I can't actually end the tournament, so I'm starting to get cold feet on this.
Not with that attitude.
Yeah.
And yeah, Meddling Mage is going to go name Burning Wish. Again, Cook's deck cannot go off without casting a Burning Wish. Can't actually win the game. It needs the Burning Wish for Tendrils.
Well, that's with its with the configuration that it sits in game 1.
That's true.
So it is very likely, I think, in the face of Meddling Mage, that he is boarded in at least one way to actually finish a game.
Okay, I can definitely see that. Here's a Ponder. He's going to shuffle away with this. I actually think that's kind of interesting about Bryant's deck is that, he's got the Burning Wishes. A lot of people know he has Burning Wish because he's playing like this Epic Storm build of this deck where you have the Burning Wish for Tendrils. However, if he boards in the Tendrils, he doesn't actually have the Burning Wish to win at all.
True.
And that would actually be kind of fun to see if he kind of plays, kind of flips the script, as Bryant is going to concede this game, as he cannot get through all that permission. So Dan Jordan is going to win game number 2, and game number 3 is where we'll be headed in just a moment.
So Bryant going to be on the play in the decider. This is a deck that gains a huge edge on the play. Bryant's deck gains a big edge when it's on the play. Dan Jordan's deck loses just as big an edge when it's on the draw.
Yeah, I think that's the thing to note here.
The Wasteland's so much better on the play. The Daze is so much better on the play. The Spell Pierce is so much better on the play. Dan, we saw in this game, got the opportunity to sneak that Delver into play and then play the reactive game for the rest of the turns.
Which is exactly how any Delver deck wants this matchup to go, be it Bug, Rug, or Blue, White, Red.
Yeah. Whereas, for this next game with Dan on the draw, even if he has, for the exact same draw, which I think Dan would be happy with.
I agree.
But he still has to, now he has to make that choice as early as turn 1. Do I want to stick my Delver? Do I want to sit on Spell Pierce? You may not get a turn 2 if you stick your Delver there.
That's true. Well, that's kind of the risk you may have to take. So you can already see Dan goes back to the drawing board just a little bit here. Cook is really happy with his configuration. Kind of got crushed that last game, but that's why they let you play 3.
And as I mentioned, we didn't actually see Bryant, go to his board again going into game 3, but I'm very curious as to which of these win conditions are actually in his sideboard and are in his main deck. He has just the Empty, as you mentioned, in the main deck, a second copy of Empty, and then the 1 Tendrils and 1 Grape Shot in the board. And I'm kind of looking at the list, trying to decide what I would do. I am no Bryant Cook when it comes to Legacy Storm.
Few are.
Yeah, few are. I think that the Tendrils itself moves into the main deck.
I think that's what you're supposed to do. Maybe chop some number of Burning Wishes out of your deck, so you can fit in the Decays and the Swarms.
I'm not sure that I don't think you ever cut Burning Wish here.
You don't think so?
I think the card's too important. It literally is your win condition.
But if you're boarding Tendrils in, then you don't need to wish for your win condition anymore.
You don't need to, but you still can because there's an Infernal Tutor. So
that's true.
It basically just gives you 7 copies of your win condition instead of 3.
Sure.
Of course, that's a card that people are going to be fighting over. I think, Dan even showed him, that the Meddling Mage is going to name Burning Wish if it comes into play. So I can see hedging for that reason, but...
Yeah, I think maybe you pick up some information when the Meddling Mage was cast. Cook's going to take another mulligan here. Okay, Dan's priority is to name Burning Wish.
Yeah.
So maybe I can chop some, maybe I chop them all, board the Tendrils in, kind of play the Okido, and really kind of trip him up here because that means that his meddling mages would be a virtual mulligan.
That's reasonable.
I mean, it's a little game inside the game. Maybe it's going a little too deep there. I don't know.
Like I said, I think Burning Wish is too important to actually completely shave, but maybe not. You would lose access to the Past in Flames. So, well, you lose access to Past in Flames, and you lose access to most of your virtual copies of Empty the Warrens. So you don't have as much rebuild opportunity, and you need those effects against like counter magic, particularly taxing counter magic.
Well, Cook's going to keep. He's going to lay off for the Gemstone Mine. See if he has anything to do on turn 1. He's just going to play that and then pass the turn back. Jordan does have a Wasteland. He's not going to fire that off, though. He's just going to go with a Misty Rainforest and pass the turn back. For Dan, there is no Delver to start things off here. Now, Cook's going to play another Gemstone Mine. He's going to cast a Cabal Therapy.
That's an interesting choice for Bryant. If Dan simply plays Misty Rainforest Go, you have to suspect there's a Brainstorm.
There's either a Brainstorm or there's a Spell Pierce.
That's fair.
I mean, there could be other things, too. There could be a Flusterstorm. There could be a Red Blast or Pyroblast. So it does open up for a couple of things here from Jordan. At the very least, it gets you thinking. Yeah, so Cook did name Spell Pierce. So you did mention Brainstorm. It's right there to go along with the Pyroblast, a Stoneforge Mystic, a Batterskull, a Wasteland, and a Polluted Delta.
This is a fascinating turn here. I love what level both players are on. Dan Jordan just let it resolve, even though he had a Spell Pierce and could have cast it. And Bryant Cook then named Spell Pierce, the one card that you could logically deduce Dan doesn't have.
Yep.
So kind of a sweet little give and take bit of gamesmanship there.
Cook does have another copy of Cabal Therapy in his hand that he's going to try to open the door with. Probably, maybe, well, we'll see if it's going to be next turn or turns down the road. The Brainstorm does make it a little complicated.
Yeah. Therapy with known information with a Brainstorm that would resolve, before the therapy, that's the ultimate shell game in Magic.
But now, to be fair, Jordan might just fire off a Brainstorm at the end of turn here, and that's, I think, we're going to see him do.
Yeah.
Is he does cast this now, because he wants to draw 3, put 2 back, and then presumably, he's going to draw one of those cards and cast a Stoneforge Mystic, get that into play, and work his way towards Batterskull again.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and you've got to fire off this Brainstorm because you're actually out of interaction.
Yeah.
You don't have time to sit around. Like, you definitely need to go digging.
Dan picked up a Jite, a Daze, and a Land, so he's going to put both equipment back. Certainly not what he was looking for from the Brainstorm. He's got to draw one of the equipment. It'll be Batterskull.
And could effectively get that other equipment right back with the Stoneforge Mystic. That would kind of bring the shields down a little bit.
I mean, this is kind of interesting here. If he's supposed to cast Stoneforge Mystic and try to get Clock Online and start attacking Cook's mana base, and he's going to go by attacking Cook's mana base, going to Wasteland that and pass the turn back over to Cook.
So sitting with Blast and Daze, and it looks like Cook just ships it right back.
And he's going to Wasteland again, so now Cook has no lands. Bryant's going to draw a card. It's a copy of Cabal Therapy. He has to pass the turn back over to Jordan. Jordan draws. He's going to play a Delta, sacrifice that, go get a Tundra, and now play a copy of Stoneforge Mystic, but he's got nothing to search for, so it's just going to be a 1-2. For Cook, you do pick up a little bit of information there because now you know what's in your opponent's hand. Cook is going to play a copy of Chrome Mox. We will likely see him in print in just a moment, but this will get dazed, so no imprints allowed.
Yeah, so this looks like a huge blowout because Bryant Cook, of course, doesn't have a permanent in play. But these Storm decks, they can go off from nowhere, literal nowhere. So even if you get the game to this point, which you have to be happy about if you're Dan Jordan, it's not, the game is not over by any means.
There's a Ponder. So a little bit of setup here. There's a Meddling Mage. Dan going to take a look at his hand. There's also another Force of Will. This is getting a lot harder for Bryant now.
Yeah, and of course, every turn that goes by that Bryant Cook doesn't, explode onto the board.
It's worse and worse.
Yes, every draw step you give Dan is another peek at something like a Force of Will, something like another Spell Pierce.
Cook is going to discard a Cabal Therapy. He's going to take 5 more now. So Jordan's going to gain some life, but more importantly, he's going to deal Cook some damage.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, each time that the Batterskull Zerm actually connects, that's just putting the game further and further out of reach in terms of what what your storm count needs to be before the game can actually end.
Cook's going to draw Red Flame, and he knows that he is beat. Dan's got a lot of permission in his hand. He's got a solid clock. He's at 26 life. He's going to go up to 30 the next turn, and Bryant knows he can't get the job done and just extends the hand before even taking lethal damage. So Dan Jordan is going to win this match over Bryant Cook. 2-1. Blue-White-Red Delver triumphant over Ad Nauseam Tendrils yet again.
Yeah. Making it look easy, Dan Jordan.
I mean, guy's pretty good at Magic. Yeah. Last time we saw him play Legacy Open,